Everyone, old school Pokemon here, back again with the PokeFlipz premiere, joined by my usual co-host, Catch 'em All Collectibles, Dan. How are we doing tonight, Dan?
Doing very well. How are you?
I'm doing well.
That's good. So yeah, we only got one question in our last episode. If anyone wants to, feel free to leave the question, not in the premiere comments, but in the actual live comments when we're done. It is a two-parter though, so we got a nice two-part question here to take, and then we will get into our eBay review as well. We did have a eBay review request a few episodes ago. We've not gotten too many in the interim, so if you ever want to have your eBay reviewed / roasted, feel free to leave that in the comments below as well, of the live stream ideally. We'll find it one way or the other. Yeah, Manny's Card World came to us with two questions. One, how do you guys keep track of your inventory to know if you made profit? That is a common and slightly complex question. Early days, I used to track one for one. I used to track like card for card. I currently have 2,500 listings. I currently have monster boxes of hundreds of thousands of singles, all different collections, some stuff that I bought and ripped. It's impossible. No one at this scale tracks item by item, a spreadsheet row for every item. So it's kind of like I mentioned frequently the Pareto principle. It's fairly likely that about 20% of your inventory accounts for 80% of your value. Account for the big things individually. I mean, I've got some very high-end Japanese promos. I got some quite high-end like set cards, and so just pick whether it's your 5 biggest items, your 50 biggest items, your 100 biggest items. Pick like some amount to track individually. That might come into obviously consult everything with a professional. I need to give that disclaimer before I get too far down this road, but it could be in your best interest to account for certain things as long-term capital gains over just normal like business profit, if and when you've held them for over a year, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, big items I individually track, but then other than that, it's a little bit of like rounding and estimating. So I'll flip it over to you. You can cover both, and then I'll come back and do part two after you've done yours. So what do you think on that first part?
Yeah, so for the first one, back when I had a YouTube channel, I used to do those monthly breakdowns. That was basically there's a little bit more that goes into that on the back end for tax purposes that I didn't want to share, but that's basically how I do it. Is the end of the month, take my total sales minus my expenses minus my purchases, and you're left with a profit or a loss. On a month by month basis, it really doesn't work out very well, because some months I didn't buy anything, other months I bought a ton of stuff. So some months I would have a huge monthly profit, other months I'd have a huge loss. But then at the end of the year, it's not a great system. Meaning you're in an ideal world, you keep track of each individual item, but like Dan was saying, it's not possible when you're selling this many cards. So it's a good estimation, and it's the easiest, least stressful way that I found to keep track of everything.
And you were just doing cash basis, correct?
Yes.
You weren't actually maintaining. So see, I actually maintain an inventory estimation. I've always maintained an inventory number. I do like a modified cash basis, which again, it's getting like too in depth for this question, I think, for YouTube. Consult with your accountant on what is optimal for you. But yeah, some people just go straight cash basis, and then consult with somebody, make sure you're doing it right. There's a lot of like scary TikToks and Instagram reels and YouTube videos where people just say certain things that may or may not kind of work the way they say it, but they don't really cover it completely the way that it needs to be done.
Yeah. but like Dan was saying in the beginning, depending on like how big you are and how many cards you're selling and buying, if you're only selling like a few cards every month or a few cards every week or something like that, making an Excel sheet and doing line by line every single item, that is definitely the way to go, and definitely the way to start off. If you're kind of just getting into this, because that way you can know, okay, I paid 80% for this collection, I lost money, so now I gotta pay less than 80% to actually make money. So it's a good learning experience. It is kind of a pain keeping track of everything like that, but it is definitely useful depending on like how long you've been buying and selling, how well you know what percentages you can buy stuff at, and all of that stuff. And then the next question, part 2. Once you sell an item, how do you manage what to allocate to personal, reinvesting, taxes? For example, do you have one main account all payouts go to, and from there distribute to separate bank accounts? So the biggest thing from this question is, if you don't already, create a separate bank account just for eBay stuff, or just for selling stuff if you don't sell on eBay. Something where all the money that you make goes into that specific account, and then also at least get a debit card attached to that account, so you can keep those accounts completely separate from your personal account. I would also go as far as getting separate credit cards as well. But then if you're already doing that, what I do is probably not the best way to go about things. But right now my expenses are very low. So I'll basically have everything go into my business account. And then from there, I'll set every month I put a certain amount into my savings account. And so I'll put that amount into my savings account every month, and then the rest of it just stays in the business account. And then when my personal account gets below a certain threshold, I'll just transfer a set amount into my personal account. So it's really basically when I need money from my business, I'll take it out and put it in my personal account. So it's really not I'm paying myself X amount every month or X amount every week. It's more so once my personal account drops below a certain amount, I'll transfer a certain amount into my personal account, and then just wait until my personal account drops below that minimum amount that I like to keep in there. So it's not the best system, but it works for me. And then everything else in my business account it just kind of sits in there. It goes to purchasing collections, supplies, packaging stuff, all of that fun stuff. And then I do like to keep a certain threshold in my business account as well, because up until this year, I never paid the quarterly estimates, because the fee that you had to, the penalty fee, was such a low percentage. I would just pay everything at the end of the year. But since they raised the penalty fee, I have started paying the quarterly estimates. So I'd always kind of keep, for me, it was whatever the dollar amount was at the end of the year they had to pay. I would usually keep that in my bank account at a minimum, so that way come the end of the year, I knew I had enough money to actually pay my taxes. But now that I'm paying quarterly, it's a little bit less, because I'm paying that amount 4 times a year. So now I can kind of keep a little bit less in my business account if I want to purchase like a big collection or something like that. So that's kind of how I do it. Like I said, not the best system. I'm sure Dan over there has Excel spreadsheets and graphs and pie charts and everything like that.
Yeah, I'm actually I've mentioned it before, but like my wife is a teacher. I joke that she's my sugar mama. We pay most of our personal bills. Pretty much what she makes covers our household spending, just about. I'm an S corporation, so I pay myself a salary through an actual payroll that my accountant manages as well. On paper, all of the payroll stuff happens. I pay the quarterly, monthly, whatever they are, payroll taxes and all this and that. But the money doesn't actually have to transfer. Like I don't have to physically write myself a check and take that money every month. It needs to transact on paper. Again, this is like bordering slash stepping over the border of tax talk for YouTube. But kind of like Nick was saying, if and when I need money, I take it out. My payroll is done by my accountants. They know what all that is. They do that all into my taxes as needed. And then if and when I physically actually take money out, I just account for that. I document it, and then I let them know that number at the end of the year. My salary was X. I physically actually took Y, or maybe I did take exactly what X was. Different implications of what is salary versus what is a distribution versus what you're physically taking in and out. They do all that stuff. They monitor all that. They make sure it's all being done properly. But as Nick said, as we've been saying since episode 1 of PokeFlipz, I believe, separate everything. Like, do not be paying for your groceries, paying for like just random crap on your personal credit card, and then buying business stuff with that. It muddies it all up. It makes it all a mess. Have a separate bank account. And getting into whether you should do cash basis or accrual basis or modified cash, that's something your expert, your accountant can tell you. I for some time did do accrual. I think the way Nick describes it, he's doing cash basis. One of the things I like about maintaining an actual inventory, even if it's just estimated, you can estimate pretty closely if you give it a reasonable stab. It really will show you better. It will show you better how much money you're actually making year over year. I did not physically take any money out until 2020. 2020 was the first year that I extracted money from what at the time was a hobby, side hustle, whatever. Now it's a full-time business. But up through 2020, I was paying some amount of taxes every year. A lot of people don't like doing that. A lot of people like the cash basis so they can basically just spend down to zero, make nothing on paper, pay nothing in taxes. And I've just never gone that route because it, the word I like to use, it obfuscates a lot of things. And whereas doing an actual inventory and keeping track of that, you can have better tabs on what you're actually making year in and year out. So yeah, I've gone that amount. I've gone that route. And I think that fully covers everything. Anything else to add?
No, I think we covered that question pretty good.
Okay. So there's the questions. That was the only question we had come in. Feel free, as I said, once the live is over, feel free to leave your questions there. We do have Mr. PokeDragon. You did not comment on the most recent one. It was a couple episodes ago. We've not gotten another eBay since. So everyone out there listening, everyone out there watching, if you want your eBay roasted / reviewed, feel free to leave it in the comments below. We'll probably find it wherever you put it, but ideally put it in the live. Ideally put it in the live, and we'll have a better chance finding it there because we're always going there for questions anyways. But yeah, Mr. PokeDragon asked a few episodes to go to be roasted, so here we go. First thing that just catches my eye, this little emoji that's thrown into every listing. I don't know if that really like pumps the sales numbers. I don't know what's going on there. He's a pretty funny looking dude though, so yeah, I don't know, maybe it draws eyes, whatever it may be. I've actually talked to some eBay reps, and they're like, do not abuse capitalization, do not throw in tons of emojis and emotes and stuff. I think the algorithm taken to the extreme, when you do like the prayer hands, rocket emoji, fire, I think the algorithm at some point actually starts punishing for things like that. I think if you do all caps, it punishes. If you're capitalizing mint or gem mint because it's capitalized on the slab, capitalizing the acronym PSA, not extreme cases like that, but when you're all capsing everything as if you're yelling, I think the algorithm technically doesn't like that. So the emoji was one thing that popped out, being in every listing. And then another thing I wanted to mention, I think I noticed one weird thing with the shipping. You're in Australia, the shipping to get to me, international, not surprising, not unreasonable that it's very expensive. But for some reason, this Kyre, it's $50 for a $700 card, both Australian numbers. And then a much cheaper card is actually more money. Something weird is going on with your shipping where cheaper cards are actually more expensive. I don't know if that's by design for some reason. I don't know if I'm missing something here, but you might just want to look into why you're charging more money on the cheaper cards. And then my last thing before I'll let Nick go, I don't know if you're in the corner of a light box here, or if you're on a dresser or whatever it may be. I do like the consistency of your photos, having that pretty similar backdrop. But I think you could just use to either do it in a light box or do it like against the back wall, not at an angle. Maybe that's just me, but for whatever reason, it's like a little bit almost distracting that you have a little bit of something going on in the background, where I think just like a plain white background is more optimal. Plain white or plain black. That's another thing with a lot of Pokemon cards. To see the whitening on the corners, you're actually often better to be against the black background. Though I've had eBay tell me that the algorithm kind of likes white backgrounds. So that's kind of could go either way with it. eBay's telling me one thing, but the card community is telling me another. So I've kind of opted for the black background in favor of what the community tends to say. So yeah, what do you think, Nick, on the eBay?
Yeah, I think overall solid job. I personally do like the emojis. I got a kick out of that. The one thing I had for you was there was like the Blissey, for example. A lot of your listings don't have the card number. Which that's something that I definitely would include. So 2 of 64. Some of your listings do have the card number, others don't. It looks like you have plenty of characters to add the card number. So if you do, I would definitely suggest adding the card number into each listing. Because I know me personally, I'll search cards that way. Mm-hmm. Mainly when I'm trying to price stuff, but sometimes when I buy stuff too. Instead of typing in for base set Charizard, I'll just type in 4 of 102 near mint.
Yep.
And so if I do a search like that, you're well, for example, if I did it on Blissey, I would type in 2 of 64, and if I did that, your listing's not going to pop up for me. So that is something that I would recommend. I do think card numbers are important.
And
go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, for cards, for certain cards, it's even more important. For like Fossil and Jungle, you have both a hollow and a non-hollow variety. So say someone's after Aerodactyl, it's important that you tell them that you have Aerodactyl 1, the hollow one, not Aerodactyl, I believe it should be 16, since there's 15 hollows in Fossil. So it's very important distinction for especially the sets where you have both a hollow and a non-hollow variety. Sorry, go ahead with what you were going to say.
The only other thing that I would suggest is with your item specifics, where you only have, you have 35 listings. So I would personally go in, and for someone like you, where you don't have very many listings, I would personally go in and fill in every single drop-down box that's relevant to your card. Mm-hmm. Where you're not listing a ton of stuff every day, I think item specifics, that's something eBay always talks about now. So I think those are becoming more and more relevant, and I think they will continue to become more and more important as time goes on. So get ahead of it while you can, and just start filling in every single relevant item specific. I wouldn't worry about the cert number where you have to type it in. But the ones where you have a drop down menu, I would add all of those, as many as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you see? Speaking of the do you have anything else for their store before we change topics?
I just want to end it with absolutely killing it. You got 100% positive feedback, which you love to see. 152 in the last 12 months, very, very solid. And look at the sell through, 13 feedback in 1 month with 30 something listings. I mean, I know me personally, I get feedback on less than half of my actual transactions. So it looks like you're selling a pretty solid quantity. Some of this is probably as a buyer as well, but in either case, you've got 152 feedback on 35 items in your store. Very, very solid. Love to see the high detailed seller ratings as well. So you're killing it, Mr. Poke Dragon. Love to see it. And thanks for offering yourself up to be critiqued.
No neutrals or negatives too. Doing good there. Doing good. Keep
Love
it up.
to see it. Yep. You had something else you wanted to go on?
The one thing I wanted to mention, did you see that they changed the item specifics to you now the used condition isn't a thing anymore. It's graded or ungraded, and then the grade, and then the cert number. Yep. And on the press release that PSA did, they said the graded was required, the grading company was required. I think the grade may be required, I forget. But then the cert number said optional but recommended.
Yep.
I don't know exactly why they're recommending the cert number, but I think at some point that's going to become another thing that's important.
If that,
which I don't know how I feel about that.
Authenticity guarantee, if I have to do it, not a huge deal, whatever. I'll live with it, because anything above 150 or so, I don't do stock photos anymore. I do actual photos of the item. I won't be a huge fan, but whatever. If they ever force it for the category, and if I ever can't do stock photo listings, like if I've got 12 Nagaba EVs in pristine 10 for $80 a pop, I do not want to have to list. I do not want to have to take 24 photos and do 12 listings. I want to do one photo, front only, of one card, and then sell 12 through it. That's a big shift I'm moving my store towards. And if they just like throw a big wrench in that and increase my listing time on the front end by 20 times, like having to add the cert now 12 times instead of one, like that just gets very cumbersome, and I'm not a fan of that if that's the case.
I hope it's never a thing. But I don't know why else they would say it's recommended now. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I was kind of confused when I saw that.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to just see where that ends up. But as of right now, it does make more sense to do the graded versus ungraded. The fact that we had to call our graded cards used and then put in that like disclaimer of, it was just weird. It's like being able to just say it's graded, it's CGC 10, PSA 10, whatever it is. That makes more sense.
Yeah, no, I do like that change. I thought that was a nice change.
But yeah, that's what we've got for today. As we've been doing with these premieres, you will be funneled directly into our live stream. Quick little change that we'll mention. We had been ending around like 4:30. We're gonna start trying to end them closer to 4 p.m. So we're gonna cut off like a half an hour from our normal 3.5 hour live stream, whatever it's been. So yeah, that's what we've got for today. Anything else to add before we push them over to the live?
No, that's everything. Thanks for watching, guys. We will see you in just a second.
Catch you over there.